Hello, everyone. I'm Fozzie or Cam, and I'm here as always with my co-host Will. How are you doing today, Will?
I'm doing great, Cam. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic, and we've got a really good episode for everyone today. Right off the bat, we're all New England Patriots fans around here, and normally, for a while, as long as we've had this podcast, when we're talking about the Patriots, in the span that this podcast has been a thing, it's usually kind of been negative. You know what I mean? There's nothing negative to say right now. How can you say anything negative at a time like this when your quarterback is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? And when your head coach and your offensive coordinator are coaching at an insane elite level? That's great. There's nothing to complain about there. When you have arguably one of the better wide receivers in the NFL in Stephon Diggs. Sure, I mean he's a little banged up, obviously, 'cause that ACL, so it took him a little bit to get involved. Obviously, touchdown this week, big touchdown. And then you've got emerging wide receivers like Kayshon Boutte and Demario Douglas and Mac Hollins, who had himself quite a game this past week against the Browns. And then you've got two outstanding veteran tight ends at this point. Austin Hooper being more of a vet than Hunter Henry, obviously. But that being said, their presence, I can see it on the field, is helping the team. Hunter has been a really, really solid tight end throughout his entire career and was ranked especially high when he was on the Chargers, but sort of had some issues, which is kind of why he ended up in New England, just due to injury. That was a big thing for him. But so far, during his time in New England, it hasn't really been as big of a problem. Austin Hooper, on the other hand, played really well for the Falcons for quite a few years and came here and has been really been a role player. You can tell he's a real presence out there, and defensively, I mean, look at our team defensively. We've got some of the best defensive players in the NFL. You've got Marcus Jones, who I don't know if anyone expected to be as good as he has been, but oh my goodness, not disregarding the insane kick returns that he's had several of this season. Not even looking at that, he's nasty. His ability to jump incredibly high, despite him being very short, is just tremendous. But in terms of flaws for this team, you can't really name them. I mean, the one flaw I noticed last week was really, or this past week against the Browns, was mainly just Miles Garrett being one of the best NFL players of all time. He's really good at football. So, and it is kind of unfortunate that Will Campbell was squared up against Miles Garrett in his rookie season. But I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be good for Will Campbell because he's you're going to face more people like that. And it was definitely a challenge. I mean, 5 sacks, but it ultimately didn't affect us. So I think it was a good learning moment for well, Mr. Campbell out there. But aside from that, he's been really all around just tremendous to watch out there. He's done a lot of great things for our quarterback, Drake May, who I think has the best deep ball in the NFL right now. He effortlessly tossed it down 40 yards to Kayshon Boutte this past week. Effortlessly. Didn't even question it. The ball left his hands and immediately touchdown. I knew it was going to be a touchdown. That's just how he rolls. He's extremely accurate. The one pick he threw, if you watch it, you might think it's not a great play, but I mean, obviously it's not. But I just don't think he saw him, and that's something that can be improved. I feel like quarterback vision and looking around the field is something that can easily be coached and hasn't really consistently been a problem, so I can't really say anything too bad for him there. And it's not like he's thrown an excessive amount of picks. And on top of that, his completion percentage is still well above the league average, which is just outstanding to see. So, yes, overall, I am extremely happy with how this Patriots team is faring this season. Um, the coaching change was needed. I'm a huge Mike Vrabel fan. I can't wait to see what he does every week. And, I feel like we have a real shot. And actually, one more criticism I have: Ramondre Stevenson. I don't think is. I think he's one of the worst running back ones in the NFL. I'm glad that they're really letting Travion Henderson start to really get into the game. And I think we'll just see more and more of him every week just because Ramondre is so mediocre. And I think Travion has a lot of potential. But yeah, Will, what were your thoughts about the Patriots this past week against the Browns and just this season overall?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have both been watching sports for a long time now, and I've very much as a fan over the years become accustomed to the ebbs and flows of sports. I've seen teams that I'm into play really well, and you think that nothing can prevent the winning streak that they're on at that moment, and then they'll start to struggle for a long period of time, and then you think that the season's over, they're never going to be able to come back from their struggles, and then they'll start playing well again. And I've very much taught myself to get used to all sorts of circumstances and to never get too hung up on a winning streak or a losing streak, because I feel like a team can be doing really well and then start to not do so well, or be doing not so well and then start to do really well. Case in point, the Warriors last season, even though they exited in the second round of the playoffs, they started off their season extremely well. I believe they started the season 12-3, and it looked like nothing could go wrong. And then they started to not play well for a long period of time, to where it had people quite concerned. But then when they got Jimmy Butler, that just completely turned their season around, and they started playing really well again. We saw even with the Patriots, the second season without Tom Brady, Mac Jones's first season in New England, we saw them not play great to start the season, but then go on that really great stretch, but then start to not play well again and have that humiliating loss in the wild card round to the Buffalo Bills. So I've been watching sports long enough now to not get too high or low on win streaks or losing streaks, because there have just been too many occasions where things will be going bad and then they'll start to go good, or good and then they'll start to go bad. So I could foresee a scenario where the Patriots schedule gets harder as this season goes on, and maybe they start to lose some games, and maybe this winning streak that they're on right now won't continue. I'm very much open to that possibility. But just because I'm open to that possibility doesn't mean that we as Patriots fans also can't celebrate what's happening right now, because we absolutely can. I mean, never in a million years did I think I would say this, but I am incredibly happy that Bill Belichick is not the coach of
Oh yeah.
the Patriots right now. I think he had to go. I think it was time. I think he had his chance to show that he could continue to be a winning coach in the NFL post Tom Brady. And Robert Kraft gave him 4 seasons, and I think he blew it. And I think bringing in Mike Rabel was the right thing to do. I think Mike Rabel, how can I not give him an A+ for his
Sure.
coaching job so far this season? He's been phenomenal. I mean, if he keeps this up, I think he should be in contention for coach of the year. So if the winning streak gets snapped and they start to play bad, won't surprise me, because I've gotten myself accustomed to the ebbs and flows of sports. But it doesn't mean that we can't celebrate what they have going right now, because it feels like something that's not just a one-time thing, but something where they're also building for the future and potentially multiple seasons of making the playoffs down the line.
I completely agree. And even if there are some issues that arrive later in the season or even in the playoffs, if I mean, especially if they're in the playoffs, I think it'll still be a successful season. I think the main focus of this season was development, and I think we're past that. We're contending now, where we're a real team. We already brushed past that last year. It was a one and done. Drake May. I My main thing, I think, is I need Drake May to be consistent. That's what I need. I need him to continue to play at this level. If it dips, that's when issues are going to start to arise. That's when you start to going to get comparisons to, unfortunately, Mac Jones. I don't really foresee that happening just because of how well he's playing, and I think it's better than any time Mac Jones has played. You know what I mean? Even technically, with that interception, was kind of a rough game for Drake. It wasn't a rough game. It was a really good game. I mean, you even had New Englanders out there uh, chanting MVP. So that's going to tell you something. And I feel like the next 2 weeks for the Patriots are going to be sort of a challenge. I feel like the Falcons could put up a decent fight, especially with their offensive weapons, like Drake London and Bijan Robinson being one of the best running backs in the NFL. Um, so that'll definitely be a factor. And then the week after, I think you've got your biggest test since the Bills game, and that's the game against the Buccaneers. Um, I don't know what's going to happen. The Bucks haven't been playing amazing as of late, whereas the Patriots have been. But who knows? Roles could reverse. Anything can happen. The Bucks, I think, are a really nasty team. I think Baker Mayfield is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, obviously. And I will say they have been suffering from a lot of injuries this season, which is kind of probably been affecting them. So it might continue to affect them that week. So I think that'll be the next real test since the Bills for this Patriots team. And then after that, I feel like it's smooth sailing. The Ravens pose a little bit of a risk, but I mean, not right now. I am hopeful that Lamar will be back by then, but really, how much of a difference will that make, especially with how he how the team was doing while he was playing? Not great. But yeah, excited to see more from this team. I think we have one of the best teams in the NFL. I think we have a lot. We have a lot that we're working with right now, and I'm very excited about it. Speaking of a lot, you know what's got a lot of people excited? Stranger Things season 5. And we have just received word, um, which I mean, in the past week or so, that the finale will be premiering in theaters. The whole announcement of this was so weird. I mean, originally they said no, and now they're saying yes. I guess there's a lot of demand. But that just brings me to why didn't you do that last season? You know what I mean? I feel like Stranger Things in theaters is such a outstanding experience. I feel like that'll certainly be something that a lot of people do, and I just wish it also wasn't in select theaters. Um, but yeah, I'm glad they're doing that. I think it's a whole new way of experiencing TV. And I don't have they released the runtime for the finale?
I think it's 2 hours.
Yeah, so that's pretty decently long movie's length of a TV show episode. So it's basically it essentially is a movie, you know. You're essentially going to see a movie. So it makes sense that it's in the theater. I mean, I'm sure you agree with that, Will.
No, I 100% agree. I had two things come to mind. On one hand, I was like, oh, the Stranger Things finale in theaters, yay. That is great. That is so exciting. That is what I had wanted all along. So I was thrilled to see that announcement. But then there was another part of me that was thinking the exact same thoughts that you just expressed, Cam, which is why is this only in select theaters and not all theaters? And why was this not done before, especially with the finale for Stranger Things season 4, which was 2.5 hours, which would make perfect sense to be released in theaters? So, unless there's something that I don't understand and Netflix has reasoning that I'm not thinking of, I just can't comprehend why Netflix wouldn't release it in all theaters and why they wouldn't have done this before, especially with the finale for Stranger Things season 4. Because we know that Hollywood and movie studios and streaming services are all about making money. And what is a better way for Netflix to make money than to release the finale of Stranger Things seasons in theaters? So
I agree.
in like I'm thrilled that season 5 is in the theaters that it's in. That's great. But unless there's something about Netflix's decision making that's justified that I'm not understanding, I just don't understand why this was not done before and why it's only in select theaters and not all theaters. It just doesn't make much sense to me.
I completely agree with you, Will. It doesn't make any sense to me. And despite that being said, I am really probably definitely going to see it in the theater. And speaking of probably definitely going to see it in the theater, um, the transitions I feel like have been on point today for topics. I've said this before in episodes. I really want to improve on how we transition to subject to subject. It used to be fine, you know. It was just I don't know exactly how I do it, but let's talk about this. And now we have to talk about blah blah blah. I feel like that's a little bit clunky. I kind of feel like these transitions are important. So speaking of seeing things in theaters, Deliver Me from Nowhere is a movie that just came out that neither of us have actually had a chance to see in theaters yet. But it is in theaters and we will see it in the theater very soon. That being said, we need to read some reviews because it's not getting great reviews, and I think we're both pretty upset about it just because, I mean, how many times I have to say this, but we're really big Bruce Springsteen fans here on the Everything podcast. So if you go to Rotten Tomatoes right now, you'll see a 60% critic score, which isn't great, but I don't totally take the Rotten Tomatoes critic score seriously. I also don't really take Rotten Tomatoes score seriously. I more take the review itself. But that being said, it also has an 84% on the audience. So I'll take a look at some critic reviews and then some audience reviews. So the first negative critic review here says, unfortunately, what made Nebraska groundbreaking isn't particularly cinematic. Scott Cooper, the director, is forced to rely heavily on the most stagnant of biopic tropes, the creative inspiration montage. I feel like that's more of a criticism of biopics in general, which I kind of feared would be an issue. I mean, especially after last year's Bob Dylan kind of wearing people down. I think people are eventually gonna get sick of specifically music biopics, you know, if they keep happening and they keep being aimed at the same audience. Every year, there's a music biopic that tries to get an Oscar. It's feeling like Oscar bait at this point. I mean, as much as I hate to say that about two great movies, Deliver Me from Nowhere and the Bob Dylan biopic, they kind of are Oscar bait, you know, for both Timothy Chalamet and Jeremy Allen White. That not saying that they won't have good performances in either, but that's kind of how people are seeing it. And that review feels particularly impacted by that. And then I'll read one more critic review. This is simple and to the point, and I feel like this sort of sums up what some critics are saying. It's a soulful piece with some missing parts. I've heard things of that nature. I've heard the romance subplot with Bruce and I believe it was his ex-wife is present in this movie, but it didn't really have to be, is what I'm hearing some people say. But I mean, nonetheless, some pieces missing for us as Springsteen fans. I think we're just kind of glad that this exists. You know what I mean? It's not every day you get a complete movie, in fact, a blockbuster movie about your favorite artist. You know, so that's always just a good feeling. You got audience reviews saying for die-hard fans of Bruce, this is a must see. That's just good to hear because as this review says, it shows us how he approached the making of this album, and that's something I think we're interested in. And I mean, you obviously know a lot about that. I mean, you read the book well, right? So I'm actually interested to see once you see the movie, what your perspective will be about that. You know, reading the book and watching the movie. Is it the same experience? Will seeing the movie almost be a waste of time? I don't know. I mean, I haven't read the book, but I'm interested to hear that side. I'm glad we have that point of view. We have that angle here to discuss. But speaking of this album is Nebraska. And for this movie, Bruce Springsteen re-released Nebraska. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to all of it. I mean, there's a lot of content here, right? But I've had a chance to listen to some of it, and from what I've heard, it's just great. It's so awesome to hear these outtakes. It's so awesome to hear these songs that are on Born in the USA in sort of a different context and a different tone. It's just really cool to see, and the whole Electric Nebraska thing. That's so fun. I don't know if I'd prefer it over Nebraska because Nebraska was made that way on purpose. I think Bruce could have made it electric, but he didn't for a reason. But it's still cool and interesting to see these electric versions, and I'm sure you agree with me there. And I don't, like you said, you haven't listened to all of it either, but I'm sure you agree with me on that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely fun to go through and listen to all the different parts of this Nebraska box set, whether it be Bruce performing the songs live, modern day, or the Nebraska outtakes, or the Electric Nebraska. And what's great about a box set like this is you don't need it to be perfect. It's like you understand the original Nebraska is untouchable and you can't beat that. So it's not like we need, these outtakes or the Electric Nebraska or the modern day Bruce live performance of the Nebraska album. Like I feel like we don't need any of that to be perfect because we understand, especially in the case of the Electric Nebraska and the outtakes, those were outtakes, and the way that the album was is how it was supposed to be in the original album is untouchable and can't be beat. But even if the original album is untouchable and can't be beat, that doesn't mean that you can't sit back and have fun listening to the outtakes. So I feel like this is great because it's like you understand that the original is untouchable, but it doesn't mean that you can't have fun listening to the outtake material too. And I feel like sometimes when you take that pressure of it being great off of yourself because you know that the original can't be touched, I almost feel like that makes for an even funner listening experience because you can be like, okay, I know that the original can't be touched, but let's see what these other things have to offer just for fun.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's sort of more of a bonus than anything revolutionary. You know what I mean? Um, Trying to think of a transition here. Really struggling, but speaking of a bonus, what would have been a bonus for us Star Wars fans? What would have been a bonus is if Adam Driver, who we have found out recently, he actually pitched a Star Wars movie. I actually hadn't heard of this until Will brought this to my attention. I guess him and Lucasfilm and a few others had agreed to this, but it was stopped by Disney, and it was a pitch for a Ben Solo Star Wars movie. But like I said, Will knows more about this than me, so please fill us in, Will.
Yeah, so it sounds like there was a script finished for this project. This would have been starring Adam Driver and directed by
Who's an
Steven Soderbergh.
incredible director.
Yeah, and this would have taken place after the events of The Rise of Skywalker and followed Ben Solo on a quest for redemption. As you said, Cam, Lucasfilm approved of the pitch and of the idea, but Disney turned it down because they didn't understand why Ben Solo would still be alive. And, one thing I was actually surprised to see is Variety came out with a couple articles uh, this week saying that there are actually Star Wars fans out there campaigning for this movie to get made. And I was surprised to hear that because even though I'm in the very small boat of people who enjoy the sequels on the whole are not popular Star Wars movies. So I'm surprised, considering how unpopular the sequels are, that there would even be Star Wars fans out there campaigning for this movie to get made. I was surprised to see that, considering the unpopularity of the sequels. But for me personally, as much as I love and respect Lucasfilm and Adam Driver, I think Disney got it right and
For
Lucasfilm
once.
and Adam Driver got it wrong. First of all, set after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, isn't Ben Solo supposed to be dead? I get that The Rise of Skywalker brought back Palpatine and that was a massive stretch, but I feel like if you're Star Wars, if you just keep bringing back characters who are supposed to be dead, I feel like it's just not going to make the deaths meaningful anymore. And when they already brought back Palpatine when he was supposed to be dead, I feel like doing it all over again with another character who's also supposed to be dead just would be a bad move and make deaths in Star Wars not as meaningful as they should be. So that's one reason why I feel Disney was 100% in the right to turn this down. And another reason is this movie's set after the rise of Skywalker following Ben Solo on a quest for redemption. Wasn't the Ben Solo redemption story already done in The Rise of Skywalker? He was
Yeah.
redeemed in that movie. We don't need another movie following
You're
him on
right,
a
yeah.
quest for redemption. The redemption storyline for Ben Solo was already done in The Rise of Skywalker and doesn't need to be seen again. So I don't know what Adam Driver and Lucasfilm and these Star Wars fans out there campaigning for the movie to get made. I mean, everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but I just think they're in the wrong and Disney is 100% in the right here. I thought it was honestly one of the silliest ideas for a Star Wars movie I've heard. I think it's just totally unnecessary and doesn't make any sense.
I completely agree with you. And to add on top of that, a lot of people forget that on top of the fake out death with Palpatine, there was another fake out death in that movie. There are multiple fake out deaths, actually. First, if you want to count this, Luke Skywalker and Han Solo technically didn't die and played their roles, right? I mean, granted, they were sort of cameo roles, but still, they're dead characters and they're bringing them back and they play an impact as if they weren't dead. So if you want to be nitpicky, I guess you could mention that. But to not be nitpicky and be normal. I mean, they fake killed Chewbacca. If you remember that, they had Rey use Force lightning to destroy a ship that we all thought Chewbacca was on, and everyone mourned Chewbacca for a little bit, and then we found out he was alive. That's a fake out death, and if you keep doing that, it eventually gets old. So I agree with you for sure there when it comes to Ben Solo, especially when he's such a big character, you know. Although it would have been interesting to see, and I'm always interested when big directors like maybe like a Steven Soderbergh get involved in big movies, like Sam Raimi being involved in Multiverse of Madness, or Taika Waititi doing Thor, despite that not really working out. I mean, it always intrigues me when a bigger kind of made themselves type of director works on a Marvel movie or a DC movie. I think that's really fun, you know. Um, but you know what else looks really fun? Wonder Man. That's the new show Marvel's working on right now, and I'm gonna be honest here. It looks really creative. I like how they're making fun of themselves. Although they're making fun of themselves, but like it's a real problem. And if this series continues this problem, which I don't think it will, well, I mean, what are they gonna do, right? But yeah, nonetheless, it looks really good. Ben Kingsley's role looks really funny. It looks like it's gonna be a fun show. Maybe not as lore heavy as some of these other Marvel shows are. And this really feels like one of the first Marvel shows, maybe despite this aside from Ironheart, even though that kind of was connected to a movie, this really feels like the first Marvel TV show. It's not really, I mean, you got Ben Kingsley's Mandarin there. Um, but aside from that, you don't really got anything tying it to the movies, you know? So I feel like this is the first Marvel project that really feel like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go watch this Marvel TV show, and that's cool. And I'm excited to see more from this. I'm hopeful it's good. I like the tone they're striking. I think they can do a lot with it, a lot of creative things, and I like how they're taking it from the comics and kind of putting a twist on it. So I'm anticipating. I'm excited. I'm actually excited for this project. I just want to see if they decide to do something creative or if they kind of play it safe and not really go all out. But Will, you're set for Wonder Man?
I mean, I hope it turns out to be good because
Yeah,
because Marvel certainly needs good on the small screen right
100%.
now. The amount of good for Marvel on the small screen seems to be coming in smaller and smaller portions right now. So I hope it turns out to be good. But any new Marvel series coming out has to prove it to me. When we look at let's take a look at the Marvel shows that are scheduled to come out next year. Daredevil, Born Again, Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Vision Quest, and Wonder Man. Daredevil, Born Again season 2, I can get myself very excited for that because I saw the brilliant note that season 1 ended on and know that they have lots of great material for season 2. So I can get excited for that. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man season 2, even if it's not a great show, I can still say that season 1 was fun and I had a fun time watching it and assume that I'll have a fun time watching season 2. But if it's something new like Vision Quest or Wonder Man, they just fall into the prove it to me category because there have just been too many recent Marvel series that are, I mean, in the cases of She-Hulk and Ironheart, total atrocities, or in the cases of Secret Invasion and Agatha All Along, series that have a few really good episodes, but other episodes that are very underwhelming and don't leave you satisfied with the series as a whole. So I would say looking at Marvel series next year, Daredevil Born Again season 2, very excited. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man season 2, don't think it'll be great, but think it'll be fun. But Vision Quest and Wonder Man just fall into the prove it to me category because I don't want to continue to fall into this loophole of getting excited for Marvel series and then having them end up not be good.
I agree with you. And I mean, at the moment, in terms of comic book media, I think I'm more of a DC Universe fan than I am a Marvel fan at the moment. I just feel like they've delivered better projects. And I mean, the Peacemaker finale wasn't outstanding, but I still had a lot of fun with that show, and it's still a better show than almost every Marvel show, which is unfortunate. And Superman was also great. And I mean, there are Elseworlds like the Batman, an outstanding movie. So I think I'm bigger on DC than I am on Marvel right now, which is kind of surprising because it's never really been that way, you know. Um, but with that being said, there are some Marvel projects coming up, like Vision Quest, and mostly the Marvel movies, like Brand New Day and Doomsday, that I am really excited for. You know, I just can't wait to see. Even if it's ridiculous, I can't wait to see RDJ return to play what is no doubt another good character. And also seeing the character Spider-Man return is just great to see. I mean, especially with all these on-set photos being leaked, that's what you want, you know. When you're filming on a real set, that just feels great, you know. That's good to see. But with that being said, that wraps up this episode of the Everything Podcast. Will, thank you very much for joining me. Excited to see what the New England Patriots do down the line. And overall, I think we had some good transitions this episode. I was happy with that. I guess I could have probably transitioned to the like end of the episode better, but like I said, with that, that takes us to the end of this podcast. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll see you next time.